everybody. It's Monday, April 11th, and that means it's time for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, Nonprofit Conversations. Thanks for joining us. I'm one of your hosts, Cecilia Supp. I am the principal and founder of Rotulips Consulting, and I'm here with my friend and co-host, Agnes. I'm going to throw it over to Agnes to say hello and introduce herself.
Thank you, Cecilia. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global audience, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Agnes Amos Coleman. I'm an association executive. Over to you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Agnes. And we are really excited today to have another first-time guest, Dr. Deleon, who is going to talk with us about improving business performance through human factors. Welcome, Tan. And would you like to say hello and tell our audience a little about yourself?
Yes, hello, Cecilia and Agnes, and the worldwide audience. Thank you for having me here today. My name is, as Cecilia said, Deleon. I am a human factors consultant. My background is actually in biomedical engineering, but we use human factors as a way to help businesses improve their human performance. And I own a consulting company called Tantalum LLC, and that's what we do.
Wow, that is really interesting, especially a biomedical background on that. So can you tell our audience a little bit about what you mean by human factors?
Sure, absolutely. So human factors is basically the idea of understanding the gray, right? And when I say the gray, I mean human beings are very complicated individuals, right? Mm-hmm. We tend as a society to lump them into a binary answer, right? So it's either this or it's that, or it's one or it's zero, or it's yes or it's no, right? Typical to what a machine, how you would interpret a machine, right? Human beings are very gray. Human factors, when applied correctly, helps businesses, helps ergonomics of practitioners, helps people in general just basically understand that gray area where human beings tend to navigate or spend most of their time, right? So from that regard, a good analogy of how the human being is put together would be, you have a brain, right? Mm-hmm. And the brain would be associated with as a computer, analogous to a computer, right? And then a computer needs software in order for it to run, right? So your hormones are the software that run that computer, right? So it's very hard for someone to pinpoint how someone is feeling today, tomorrow, the next week, right? Because those hormones are modulated not only by interoceptive responses, so things happening inside your body, but exteroceptive as well, right? So things happening in the environment, right? Human factors tends to look at the exteroceptive environment, right? Mm-hmm. Because the interoceptive environment is just a very, very hard thing to pinpoint, and it's a very, very hard thing to actually try to diagnose, right? Mm-hmm. So we look at the exteroceptive environment, and for me, I tend to call it environmental affordances. Depending on who you are, they may call it something else. But what are the affordances that the environment provides, right? Based on those affordances, you're able to break down tasks that people do, whether it's you're building a widget, right? And you need to turn out a certain number of widgets in order for you to meet the bottom line of your company. Mm-hmm. Or if it's you're writing a report, right? And you want to improve the first time quality of that report so that your business, your employees aren't spending extra time doing rework, right? Because mm-hmm. there's a huge cost on that rework, right? Economists tend to look at, average cost of things. Marginal cost is a very hard thing to actually define from data. And marginal cost is really how much does it cost to produce an extra one widget, right? To produce something additional, right? Mm-hmm. So that one extra thing beyond what you already produce, how much does that cost, right? And from a performance perspective, that might be of interest to a business, right? I want to produce one more widget because maybe that one more widget may be the difference between being in the red or being in the black, right? The average cost tells you something, but it doesn't tell you the full story, right? So from that perspective, human factors, you're able to break things down into, you can break them down to a certain hierarchy. You can go further deeper into that hierarchy, right? The first, so you can break something, let's say you're gonna break down making coffee, right?
Okay.
For example, right? You know, you need a cup, you need coffee beans, you need a grinder if you don't have it already pre-ground, right? You need hot water, you need a way to boil it, etc. Now, from that perspective, you can go deeper into the cup. What are the things for the cup? What are the things for the grinder? What are the things for the coffee? Maybe you like a flavored coffee. Maybe you don't like a flavored coffee. So that's typically called a task analysis. And that task analysis gives you several details of specific tasks or specific operations. Most companies have standard operating procedures, right? They have operating instructions, depending if you're in the military, right? So all those things are a window into how a company or a firm wants its employees to operate, right? Now, from those pieces, you can adapt and adjust those OIs, SPs, so that you can get further improvements via task analysis, environmental affordances, etc.
You know, it almost sounds to me like a management engineering of business processes. So within the association community, you look at a time that you use in accomplishing a task to, first of all, to help the employee do either be more efficient or be more effective, or even just to really look at it in terms of, you know, your budget. So that sounds like what you've described there, obviously, and looking at ways that we could do that better within our association community. So for our global community who have just listened to you and share this, how do you think the association community can actually benefit from this? Is it to save cost? Is it to save time? Or is it to invest in their employees who work for them? We're just curious to get a sense of where the value comes into play for us as an association.
So most companies or firms, the most valuable piece of your company is your employee.
Agreed.
Right? It's the intellectual property that employee brings to the table, right? And the value that you get from that employee, right? So if you are looking for long-term investment, right? The investment is really in your employee, right? Now, based on your employee, where your employee is, you know, based on your business objectives and goals, right? If it's almost like, you know, the adage, happy wife, happy life, right? Happy employee, right? You're going to have your customers are going to be very happy, right? Because the employee is going to turn around and take the ownership because they see that the people at the top, the people that are making, directing and guiding the company, take value in what they bring to the table. And they're showing this by saying, well, I want to understand you as an individual, and I'm willing to use different types of tools. I mean, there's all these different, you know, cognitive assessments that you can do to figure out how your employee, who you are as a person, and, you know, DISC assessments, and, you know, are you introverted, extroverted, etc. Right? But all those things are, you know, they are very qualitative in their nature, right? Human factors is more objective, right? It's a quantitative and objective, right? It literally looks at what you're doing, right? It looks at the things that have trended over time, right? It has best practices that are scientifically proven, right? based on research that has been done for the last 50 years, 50 plus years, right? So it looks at all those different metrics, and there's not everything is going to be of value to a specific corporation depending on what they're trying to do, right? But I think that, you know, if you're focusing on the bottom line, you should focus, that's fine. The bottom line is very important because that allows you to flourish as a corporation. But your bottom line is really predicated on your employees, right? And there's, you know, people say, well, you know, there's tasks that I can probably use AI and AI/ML or deep learning, and I can remove the employee and bring in a robot or do something, some type of technology or software that can take that person's place. Technology is wonderful, right? It's a great thing. There's no issue against technology. Human Factors leverages technology where it's appropriate based on the metrics that are defined for the processes that the employee is using or performing. So with that said, right, technology can be integrated and is very useful. However, right, you need to understand where that technology can be most effective, right? People are great because when something goes wrong, something new transpires, they're able to reason and continue on. Whereas a piece of technology, if something is different or out of the norm, right, which is basically life in general,
right?
the piece of technology will just stop and it won't know what to do, right? That's why people will never go away, right? You will have collaborative work environments is what I think going forward, where you have technology and people working together, because people are very good at nuance. Technology isn't, right? And you need to capitalize using human factors and other tools and other metrics that are out on the market. You need to capitalize on where you can use your employees or the human capital most effectively, right? And that's what it does for you. That's what it tries to perform for you. And just I know I'm going a bit long here, but just to bring this point home, you know, there's a thing about, you know, multitasking, right? They always say, you know, people say, well, I'm multitasking and, you know, I'm getting a lot done. Got a lot done. So multitasking is, I'll take this back. So people don't traditionally multitask in the sense of multitasking, right? People do things in sequence, right? So I call it pseudo multitasking, right? So you start one thing and then you move on, then you start something else, then you go back to the other thing, then you go back to the other thing, right? And you keep flipping back and forth, right? So if you were really truly multitasking, right, you could potentially do those two things at the same time, right?
Yes.
Right.
So people talk about, well, you know, well, I can multitask, and I'm not saying that there aren't things that you can't do together, right? So walking and chewing gum, you can do that together. Is that going to benefit your employer? Probably not. Walking and checking your cell phone, you can do together. Is that going to benefit your employer? Probably not. If you're writing a report and if I'm writing a report and I'm talking to this wonderful audience in front of me, right? The likelihood is I won't be able to do both things effectively, because when I have to actually do something when I'm typing, I'm going to stop,
of course,
type, right? Because I have to think about what I'm saying, and then I'm going to go back to talking at the same time, right? So that is, I feel like it's just a cultural thing that we just absorbed without really looking at the detail. And and as I said earlier, human factors really looks at the gray, and the gray is where you get into the details of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to understand what's really transpiring, what's really going on, right?
Right. Yeah, so that's interesting. I believe there is a specific circle of hell for people who multitask, simply because I feel it really, it's not a lot of benefit, as you pointed out, Tan, and it also is a distraction. I don't think you do anything well if you're trying to do more than one thing at once. Believe it or not, we're already at the end of our episode.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was all very interesting. So, but just very quickly, as we get ready to close out this episode, I've heard a lot about processes and how they can help the bottom line and things, but I haven't heard a lot about the human part. So you were talking about hormones earlier. I mean, there's hormones, there's moods, there's
absolutely.
Are we having a good day or a bad day? Did we sleep well? Did we not sleep well?
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this episode, which I think this is a fascinating topic, so we will have to have you back and talk about it some more. But
I'll be very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah. Definitely. Because I think that I agree. Well, first of all, I don't think I know. I do agree with you 100% that people are our most important asset. And if we can support them on a day where they're performing at their 80%, for all the other, to help them do well for all the days they are bringing us 100% or 110%. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. But could you, just for our wrap up, and then we always ask Agnes for her final thought as well, but for our wrap up today, Tan, can you talk a little bit more about the human part of like putting people into these processes or teaching them these processes?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, processes are in place because, corporations do not want to have a reproducible product, right? They want to take anybody. So if I created a wonderful streamlined process to make, back to our coffee analogy, to make a coffee cup, right? A corporation wants the ability to, if for some reason, some other corporation was like, wow, that's a fantastic process to make a coffee cup. We want to bring you in to make coffee cups for us as well, right? Another person can come and take my spot without missing a beat, right? Because the processes have been outlined and detailed, The piece of that is that those processes are really in line with how the equipment is used to make that product, right? The part that's always left out is human beings are so adaptable, right? We have an ability to, as I said, nuance is something that it's our strong suit. We strive at nuance, right? We're so adaptable that society and culture has come to a point where we focus on the machines because they're like, oh, well, the person that's running the machine, they'll figure it out. They'll fit the process. They'll fit the mold, right? There's a piece called it's called HumanCentered Design, right? So you focus on the human rather than the piece of equipment, right? You design the equipment, the processes around the person that's doing it. And at the end of the day, you not only have a process that you can interchange and take people in and out of, you have a process that allows people to perform at the highest level. And if there's an issue, right, you're able to pinpoint those issues more directly without having any circumvention or circumspection on where the real problem is. And you avoid more Band-Aids and you actually come up with solutions and fixes.
That's awesome.
So Agnes, what is your final thought or question on this topic, which we definitely need to bring Tan back and explore much
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that Tan mentioned in his closing thought is, even in a nutshell, it's just, again, reinforcing the value of people. And not just reinforcing the value, but engaging them through this human factors to be successful in what they do. and not just being successful in what they do, but be able to work with the organization or the people factor to make that process effective. So, and that's the piece that I think it's so important, even within our association community, rather than creating these tools and processes that we use within the association and just say, get on with it, do what you need to do and do it. But just really engaging our teams, our staff, our people to say, you make organizations happen. Cecilia, you and I have talked about this several times. Organizations just do not happen. People make organization happen. And how do we engage our people to be successful? And that's really, for me, what I've kind of gotten out of this. And I definitely agree we need to bring you back to break this down for our community, because we need to rethink our people and how we work with them to be successful. Because if without our people, we cannot be successful within an organization, regardless who you are or what you do. And that's the point that I think, as a global community of association, we need to hear, we need to learn more about, and we need to continue to work around these directions in making sure that we engage our community and our staff and our people that work with us.
And that's an excellent summary, Agnes. And as Agnes has mentioned, we have talked about this many times, just the two of us, because organizations are people. We say the government, we say an organization. Those are broad terms for a large group of people working together to make something happen. So I think if we in the nonprofit world continue to keep that top of mind, we'll be able to better serve our mission and better serve our members by better serving our staff and helping them develop. So Tan, we are unfortunately at the end of our episode. How can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up with you directly?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you can visit my website. It's tantalumllc.com. So TANTALUM LLC.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And we will definitely have you back to start looking at some of these different areas within this broad topic area. So thanks for joining us. We've enjoyed having you.
Oh, thank you.
We have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next week with another exciting episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia. So don't forget to subscribe though, so you don't miss any of our future episodes. You can check out our library as well on youtube.com, or you can catch us on a variety of audio podcast services, including Amazon Music. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips, visit our website, roguetulips.com, and find out how we can help your organization. If you'd like to get some CAE learning, whether you're getting ready to take the exam for the first time or you're getting some renewal credits, visit our 501c League website. The 501c League is our education arm of Rogue Tulips. You can learn more about the League at the 501cleague.net. Thanks for joining us this week. And on behalf of Tan and Agnes and myself, thanks again for being here and listening, and we will see you next time.